Life goes on for the 47 residents of the Harbourside Haven Retirement Village, but one great Australian will be sadly missed.
Be 110 and still have just the spirit that lady had, I think is pretty amazing.
It was December 27th last year that Catherine Kit Sinclair celebrated her 110th. Born in Victoria in 1882, she was 32 at the start of World War I. A postmistress who never married, Kit was overcome by the attention, being Australia's oldest citizen.
Just live from day to day as an ordinary person.
Kit died in her sleep late last week. A bowl of flowers in the nursing home is set up to remember a woman who joked with staff and residents. In relatively good health for her age, Kit's death came as a shock for some.
She's a grand old lady.
Motion pictures have depicted the bat as an evil creature, but it's a reputation lovers of megabats, more commonly known as flying foxes, dispute.
Oh, Tommy, you lump bats too.
At this regular mothers' meeting, everyone has something in common, a bundle of nocturnal orphaned fluff.
Just exactly like having a baby in the house, and when they are tiny, it's 24 hours a day.
These baby bats have been found by volunteers of the Wildlife Animal Rescue and Care Service based at Matcham on the Central Coast. Most have been taken from their dead mothers, shot or electrocuted on power lines.
Just a minute.
Feeding times run like clockwork. Even the baby's weight is carefully recorded. Carers say it's all worthwhile.
They are the only pollinators of the large gum trees, and also they take the seeds from the rainforest. Now they're a very important part of our ecology.
Meet Big Joe. At 2 kilograms, he's one of the world's largest bats and chief of this rare captive backyard colony.
Well, we've had a lot of visitors from overseas, particularly in America, and they are quite amazed because as far as we can find out, we're the only ones that live close to an actual colony and also have a captive colony in a natural environment.
It may look like these creatures are on a good deal with free room and board, but 5 tonnes a year in fruit can be expensive, and Wildlife Ark is in need of help.
I feel that they are getting very close to being endangered, and the only way we're going to find out all these things is by research. But until we can get some money to finance research, it's a bit difficult.
It's probably the most spectacular side of the sport, competitors of the Koshiki discipline lashing out at each other in mock battle. The punches and kicks may look flashy, but they also have plenty of sting despite the padding. Even the little kids have a go at each other. The worst injury for the day, though, a torn toenail. The competition isn't all physical contact. The cater allows participants to clash with an imaginary opponent. Points are awarded not for the most pained expression, but for the most balanced and proficient performance. 10-year-old Kate Lillyman from Campbelltown captured everyone's attention with a routine that a black belt would be proud of. The judges agreed, awarding her the highest score for her division and the national championship. Ada Jones from Swansea won 3rd place in the open women's event, while Gorican's Melita Wilson finished 2nd with her interpretation of a classic Japanese routine. Robbie Smith in the blue has only been boxing for 12 months and already has enough form to easily make the state finals. He made short work of his Campbelltown opponent in the under 35 kilo division and impressed officials enough with his conduct in and out of the ring to be awarded the Boxer of the Championship. Jamie Pittman in the dark blue trunks came up against fellow Newcastle boxer Warwick Wright in the under 14 35 kilo final. The pair went toe-to-toe, and when they finished they were both completely exhausted. Jamie, though, won on points. Nobody else turned up in James Kilroy's division, so he went up a class and flogged Parramatta's Christopher Ryan. However, the best performance of the day came from young Koori boxer Fred Gibson from Newcastle. Fred had to fight his sparring partner in the final and didn't hold anything back. He let Alan Rush really have it and was an easy points winner.
The $30 million storehouses built at the Army's Myambit Supply Company revolutionise explosive storage, and for their official opening today, the Army turned on a show. The Army has up to 20 ammunition units throughout Australia. Myambit is the national headquarters, storing around 30,000 tonnes of ammunition, including some for the RAAF and Navy. The 34 explosive storehouses were designed by Queensland company Spantech. The 15-metre high structures are made from steel and reinforced concrete and are covered with grass. In the event of an explosion, this helps to dampen the blast force. It's the first time worldwide ammunition facilities have been built in such a confined space.
Well, what we've had in the past have always been safe, but we've had to spread them out over very large distances. This has enabled us to concentrate it, and also it makes it easier to manage. We need less manpower to actually operate for the quantities.
Approved by NATO, the storehouses are a third cheaper than those built in Britain. They are also safer because should one explode, debris will scatter in a smaller radius and won't detonate nearby storehouses, making it safer for Army personnel and the surrounding community. Apart from the safety aspect, the revolutionary design of the storehouses has potential to earn export dollars. Already the design has attracted inquiries from overseas bodies involved in storing ammunition, including the Departments of Defence in Malaysia and Saudi Arabia. It's intended the explosive storehouses will now act as the flagship to display Australian design expertise to overseas investors. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Okay, now we go to camera number 3.
That live in wetlands, so you go from birds to larger animals, Torres.
So you can see maybe just the top of the desk. So don't touch the focus anymore. Zoom right in again.
The course is just 700 metres long and starts like most in the military, but when you consider most of these soldiers have had a sum total of just 2 hours sleep over the past 5 days, it takes on a whole new degree of difficulty. Besides the simplest of tasks becoming near impossible, the group is under constant fire from live machine gun bullets and mortars. And if that wasn't enough, there were false tunnels and some water holes were 2 metres deep. The course is designed to put the unit under stress. They were awarded points for teamwork and lose points if they failed to complete a task. So the determination to finish and not let their mates down is one of the strongest bonds in peacetime. Looking on today were officers from the United States, New Zealand, Britain and Canada. They all rated the Singleton course as the toughest they've ever seen and all commented they will incorporate a number of the obstacles in their officer training programs.
You can see who the formal and informal leaders are, and you see the young individual soldiers who exhibit a lot of initiative and are the future leaders.
The course may be 700 metres long, but it takes a good team an hour 10 to complete, and at the end most find it hard to breathe, let alone raise a salute. Townsville's second RAR 1993 winners of the Gloucester Cup. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
For the next 2 days, these students will be facing some tough issues at Belmont High School. Sexism, homosexuality, racism and anti-discrimination, to name a few.
Hopefully what they'll get out of it is more of an awareness of other cultures, of other people, and other races, and be less discriminative in that way, through awareness.
The workshop is the idea of 15-year-old Belinda Gould, who says teenagers are forging the attitudes of the next generation.
If they're brought up with racist parents or racist society, then obviously they're going to adopt the same attitudes. Now, we're trying to change that at this age, where change is still possible.
Armando Hurley is an American with first-hand experience of racism and travels the country to help change attitudes.
I'm saying stop, look, listen. I'm saying to them they are the landlords of tomorrow. And the condition that my generation and past generations have left this world in is near disgusting. And I hope that I can encourage them to repair and clean up the damage that we've done to make the world a better place for tomorrow's children.
The floating dock Mullabimba, which is at the centre of the dispute, has now been empty for a month, with Forjax unable to secure further work. 3 weeks ago, the company decided to dismiss the 40 workers who man the floating dock. Forjax called for renegotiation of work practices, claiming the ship repair business had become uncompetitive. The men's decision to stick with their current enterprise agreement ended up costing them their jobs. Commissioner Peterson of the Federal Industrial Relations Commission this afternoon directed the company and the Metal Workers Union to hold further negotiations on the decision to close the floating dock. Workers meet tomorrow morning at Carrington to be informed of the court hearing.
The investigation follows claims the federal government's youth homeless allowance is encouraging teenagers to leave home. More than 10,000 youths under the age of 16 and assessed to be suffering from abuse in the home are collecting the $214 fortnightly allowance. But there's evidence of fabrication, not only from teenagers.
Where a youth and their parents conspire to fabricate a story that they can no longer cope with each other, and hence entitle the youth to an allowance.
Labor MP Alan Morris will chair a parliamentary inquiry into the matter. He says one major problem is the welfare gap between governments. Although the Commonwealth provides money for assistance, youth services remains a state responsibility.
We appear not to be acting on behalf of our families as governments. We appear to be acting as quite separate organisations and not coming together to support families and the children of families that are experiencing difficulties.
Other allegations to be investigated include cost-cutting measures of state wards ending up in refuges instead of foster homes and the lack of suitable family crisis support and welfare services.
Obviously our systems are failing those kids. The allowance is one part of it, but the other part of it is very much the fact that we should be trying to work together.
The inquiry is calling for submissions before commencing public hearings early next year. Melinda Smith, NBN News. It's been described as one of the hunters' best-kept secrets. Stockton Bight is among the state's largest unspoiled coastal dunelands, and some groups plan to keep it that way.
We want all the public and Crown land from Stockton right round to Barruby Point, Anna Bay, to be dedicated as a coastal park.
The conservation proposal is being offered as an alternative to rezoning plans being considered by Port Stephens Council. If approved, nearly a third of the land along the narrow coastal strip would be cleared to make way for a housing commission development.
If you take that much of the park out, then you really greatly reduce the value of what's left. You destroy the connection with Fullerton Cove and the Hunter Valley wetlands, and so there's a very clear choice here. Either we protect it as a whole or it's gone.
The Newcastle Bight Coastal Park Coalition claims sand mining at the Boral Quarry has already damaged the area's unique ecosystem. It's organised a public meeting tonight at Stockton to rally support against any further development.
Stockton people in particular have not been consulted on it, and we want to make a very strong demonstration of public concern to Council before they make their rezoning decision.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
It was raining heavily at around 9:30 when the driver of this mid-sized station wagon lost control of the vehicle. Police say it went to the wrong side of the road and collided head-on with a northbound utility. The 39-year-old Moree driver was trapped. The wreckage had to be prised open by members of the Narrabri Volunteer Rescue Association before he could be taken to hospital suffering a neck injury. The ute driver from Wee Waa was also taken to Narrabri Hospital suffering spinal injuries.
Life is finally returning to the old Theatre Royal. It's been closed since 1989 when Hoyts opened its new cinema complex at Charlestown. The Hunter Street building has been allowed to deteriorate. Pigeons have infested the rooftop and vandals have left their mark. But come March, it will be transformed into a church with the Reverend David Jones at the helm.
We want to restore it back to its original Art Deco and modern style. It's a beautiful old theatre. It's a very prominent position in Newcastle, well known in the whole area, but it certainly has deteriorated over the years.
Mr Jones has ministered at the Charlestown Victory Baptist Church for the last 14 years, but he was looking for a new challenge and now he's found it. With the help of 3 families, the building was bought at auction for $200,000. Mr Jones believes there's a need they can fill.
It's a needy area. It's a growing area, and with the honeysuckle redevelopment I think that it has a lot of strategic value, but I think the residents and workers and visitors and shoppers to the area will probably appreciate some of the things that we'll do here.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
"62-year-old Carmel Parmeter is recuperating in her Lambton home in suburban Newcastle, her appearance belying the debilitated state her daughter found her in more than a month ago.
She said because I was limp all over, laying on the bed and I was just as red as a beetroot.
And she said to her father, she said, "Dad, Mum's dying." She said, "Why don't you do something?"
The mother of 4 was hospitalised immediately, during which time the public health unit carried out tests on soil in Mrs Parmiter's pots. The same species of Legionella organism was found in Mrs Parmiter's system as in her flower pots.
We found that there were 80 Legionella in the top surface of the potty mix, and down below in the bottom of the pot plant was actually 4,700 Legionella per mil. If we could compare it to the levels of bacteria that sometimes are found in air conditioning systems, that would be an extremely high level of Legionella in a cooling system.
The potting mix industry has hit back at the findings, suggesting it's not beyond the realms of possibility that the Legionella organisms could have found their way into the mix through the water applied to the plants. The Health Department acknowledges the risk of a person contracting Legionnaire's disease from potting mix is very low, but if someone suffers from a respiratory illness or low immune system, they recommend the person use a protective face mask when handling the potting mix. They also suggest the mix be kept damp. This warning is displayed on potting mix packets. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Newcastle and play, and I thought they would have made it a lot more secure for me and offered me a lot more money.
Look, he can't, like he's hobbling. Oh. By one, and they'll try to shut this down. Harvey splits them, he gets them. Oh, magnificent basket, Peter Harvey. The game. Chris inside the 3-point line.
Last weekend's loss added fuel to the fire for critics keen to dismiss the early season success of the Breakers as a passing phenomenon. Newcastle plummeted from top position on the National Soccer League ladder to 6th after the Parramatta slaughter. The Breakers trained at Birmingham Gardens last night to prepare for their clash against Adelaide. Recovering from knee surgery, midfielder Darren Stewart had a light run by himself. He's expected to rejoin the team in 2 weeks. He'll miss a hectic 8 days when the Breakers play the 3 big guns of the NSL. After facing Adelaide tomorrow night, they take on South Melbourne next Wednesday at Mitre 10 Stadium, and the following Saturday they meet Marconi in Sydney. Jason Neuenhoff, NBN News.
Rehearsing the musicians and choristers from the Waratah Girls and Newcastle University choirs last night, conductor Roland Peelman. The performance features old favourites like The Little Drummer Boy, Ave Maria and Silent Night, as well as Benjamin Britten's Ceremony of Carols. The program will be repeated tomorrow night in another concert at the University Great Hall.
The investigation into the Upper Hunters dieback problem has been underway for just over a month. Dr Roger Farrow, project leader of the CSIRO's Insect Pests of Eucalypt program, has made 2 visits to the region following concerns expressed by the Hunter Catchment Management Trust. Rough bark applebox trees at Singleton Army Base show similar problems to those found amongst eucalypts in the Scone area. Insects are believed responsible.
In other places, in the southern tablelands and elsewhere, leaf miners have been quite important. There's a particular pest called the leaf blister sawfly, which is a major problem in trees, and this certainly looks like that. So this could well be the insect we've been looking for that's causing the defoliation of apple box.
While landowners are trying to re-establish trees on their properties, Dr Farrow believes careful research and communication can help overcome the dieback problem.
A lot of these trees that are living in a very changed farm environment aren't doing very well, and it may be better to plant different trees that are going to survive better. This may mean different species from outside, or it may be more resistant trees to insect attack.
The Catchment Trust, CSIRO and Landcare groups are currently developing a joint program aimed at identifying strains of trees which will be more suitable for planting in the Upper Hunter.
"37-year-old Bruce Rhodes is from an old farming family in the district. He's a former soldier who also runs an engineering business, but his main interest is a cattle property 30 kilometres south of Inverell. Bruce is hoping that his strong rural background will help him add politics to that list in the next state election.
I'm very pleased with the support and somewhat surprised, in fact, at the amount of support I have out there, in spite of the fact that I'm not as well known.
Bruce Rhodes has made no secret of the fact, locally, that he's not satisfied with the performance of the sitting member, Ray Chappell.
A lot of politicians need to get the message that they must represent the people, the grassroots, and stay a lot more in touch with them than they have been doing in the past.
70 delegates will meet at Glen Innes in the morning to hold the pre-selection ballot. Mr Rhodes expects a close vote, but says if he loses, he'll throw his support behind his National Party colleague.
Developer James Mullen commissioned a Sydney-based firm to undertake the study. 700 Hunter residents were interviewed, many of those from the Swansea Cays Beach area. What's obvious from the survey is that the company still has to convince most of the community about the development's benefits. While 32% view it positively, almost as many have a negative view of the project. A further 26% see both good and bad aspects.
We'll be endeavouring to keep the community aware of what's happening. A very important part of that process is the task force that has been set up by Council. That seems to be working very effectively with a lot of goodwill, and we'll be trying to promote that.
The good news for the company is that the need for job creation in the region outweighs environmental concerns 2 to 1. The company has given the survey to councillors in the hope that it will push along its rezoning submission, which comes before council on Monday night.
And bearing in mind, of course, that there is a substantial Labor content in Lake Macquarie City Council, and that job creation is a very important plank in the Labor platform, that they wouldn't attempt to find every way that they possibly could to support and assist us in making this project work.
Maitland Hospital staff and the public wanted to hear from the Health Minister, who had won the contract for the $31 million redevelopment of the facility. The crowd was to be disappointed with no public announcement about the project. However, the Minister told NBN the letting of the contract is close.
Well, we'll expect to be announcing tenders in the not too distant future. I'm waiting on advice from the department at this stage.
The member for Maitland, Peter Blackmore, presented the Minister and 3 of the first nurses to live in the former nursing home with bricks from the old building, demolished to make way for the new hospital. While bricks became bouquets, the Minister is confident the redevelopment won't receive further flack because of delays in construction.
Well, I'm confident that the timetable that has been established for the full program with completion in 1996 will be on time, just as we're on time today.
The Health Minister did get his hands dirty planting trees in place of turning the first sod for the redevelopment.
The task force of 6 councillors and representatives from Macloys began meeting late this afternoon, trying to come up with a solution suitable to both parties. Macloys went into negotiations over Greenpoint with what they called their final offer of 100 hectares of parkland in return for 70 hectares or 600 residential blocks. That offer, though, had to change once negotiations began, with council determined to get as much open space for the city as possible. According to Director Ross Howard, Macloys were forced to rethink their offer. A short time ago, the councillors were considering that.
Basically, the plan which we have that you've seen is to be adjusted in a few areas by way of monetary compensation and also by council providing land elsewhere to offset the areas that we won't be developing.
All right, so you could be giving council more parkland, they could be getting more parkland out of this?
The areas that we are adjusting are fairly small, but yes, they will result in more parkland.
Hurtling around the motordrome at more than 100 kilometres an hour seems to be the perfect way for speedway enthusiasts to celebrate the sport's birth. Most of the bikes and engines are now built overseas, but it hasn't always been that way. The sport actually started in the Hunter Valley in 1923.
The late Johnny Hoskins saw some fellows riding their strip-bound motorcycles around in a paddock area at Maitland. He, being a very shrewd businessman, decided that he would get these fellows to perform at Maitland Showground in 1923, in December of 1923, and that was the beginning of speedway racing worldwide.
Some riders managed to get on the motordrome this afternoon for a last-minute practice session before tomorrow night's celebrations. In a rare event, the top 5 riders of the night will come up against each other in a series of one-lap dashes until there are only 2 left.
It's really important that you don't be the last one across the line on the first time around or the second or the third time around, so that you've got to ensure that you get through and become one of the final 2 to at least have a chance of grabbing $500.
The prize money certain to encourage a few teams and solos to push that little bit harder, something the crowds crave to see.
Well, the reason that they've put such large wire fences over on the inside is to stop them from crawling over into the track. It's that exciting.
The sport's greats from over the past 70 years. Darren Curtis, NBN News.